Yeah.
So now that your tables, the file per table, you have like ISM, are they relocatable, or you need to do something?
Okay, yeah. The question is, I have file per table system. Are they relocatable? Now, I don't know if that, yes, they are relocatable. I don't know how practical that is. We can go back to the structure, this structure. Yeah. What I did do was I made this structure so that that these things are easily relocatable by symbolic links. I can easily put the transaction log that I mentioned in one of the configurations on a different drive to the data logs to the test database itself by turning these into symbolic links. And the good thing about this is a permanent structure. So no matter what's happening, the problem with of course, relocating these files, like making a symbolic link here, is as soon as I do alter table, the way MySQL works is it does alter table by creating a new file and then copying over the whole data, and my symbolic link is lost. So that's why, then you'd have to go and fix it up again. It's quite impractical. But I think, oh no, there's a possibility to say in location, right? When you do alter table, you can say data here, index there. That's not implemented yet. But that would make sense very much.
The place where I was going more was relocating to a different database. Like I can take my SM file from one place to another, and the database recognizes.
Oh, you mean like shipping the table? Okay, I can't ship tables yet. The problem is, that some of the data might well be in the data log. So there are some table configurations or record configurations where I actually have no extended data. That would be possible, but I'd have to sanitize them a little bit before that's done. They have to be flushed. I have to ensure that everything is that all records have been cleaned, as I mentioned what the sweeper does. All records must be cleaned before that's possible. I had a question there, and then is that you got a question as well, or are you telling me I don't have any time left? Okay. And then you, Baron. Yeah.
Okay. Could you rebuild the table and have zero data in the data log, all the data in the table itself, and then move the table to another server?
Okay, so the question is, could I rebuild the table so that I've got zero data in the data log and all the data in the handle data so that I could ship the table? The answer is yes, theoretically I could. What I do want to do is add a parameter out of the table as soon as that's possible so that the administrator can actually control the size of the handle data file. As I said, I use a simple heuristic to determine it currently. So if you were to do that, that would be possible. But I think that wouldn't be practical if you have rows, depending on the table structure. You see, the problem is the handle data structure, that's got to be fixed length. And so, it's got to be big enough to contain the biggest possible row, and that might not be practical. I think the way that, the best way to ship would still be the old, MySQL done currently. Yeah, Lens.
What happens if I create a database named PBXT?
Then you've got a problem. He asked, what would happen if I create a database called PBXT? Yeah, as I mentioned, MySQL currently thinks that is a database. Actually, no, you wouldn't probably have a problem. It would just complain about these things here in system data when you try to drop the database PBXT. So actually, when I think about it, it'll probably work.
It'll just collide because it will start putting table files inside the PBXT directory.
It'll put table files in the PBXT directory, but that's actually not a problem. It's not going to disturb anything here. And if you drop the database, MySQL will delete everything except data and system, and then will complain that it can't drop the database completely. But it won't delete that stuff there. So it's not it wouldn't be a disaster. Yes.
Would it be realistic to have 10,000 tables using one server?
Would it be realistic to have 10,000 tables on one server? Well, I've put in a limit on the number of tables, sort of an artificial limit of 10,000 on how many tables you can create in PBXT. The reason for that limit is because internally I use file handles to access these different files, and I'm not pooling file handles at all in any way. And in order to handle more than, I mean, 10,000 is even, I'm not sure if it should handle 10,000, but if you're going to go over that, you're going to run out of file handles unless PBXT starts pooling them. And I think that the MySQL pool must also become. My problem is that I don't pool them. So if MySQL opens too many open tables, then I'm going to run out of file handles. Yes. Okay. Okay, the question is, what kind of locking do I have? This is row-level locking. In fact, with MVCC, you only have to lock for updates. In pure MVC, you actually don't have to lock at all. You have lock conflict if two threads or two transactions try to update the same record. You have a lock conflict error where the system recognizes that somebody else has updated the same record, and but this is not acceptable because most people don't program for lock conflict errors to occur. They should be handled just like you handle a deadlock. A lot of people program trying to avoid. It's a good idea to try and avoid deadlocks, but they don't program to handle them, and in that way they don't. Lock conflict will cause the same problems. So what I do is I actually do update locking in PBXT. That's also required for select for update, which is supported by PBXT. But unless you're doing a select for update, I don't do any read locking, so you get a consistent read. Yes, over there you were first.
Did you do anything special for blob data type? Because currently, we put blob data in it, it's create lots of locality problems.
Okay, so the question is, do I do anything special for blob data types? There are two things here. First of all, PBXT itself, by using this record structure here with the extended data, handles blob data very well. Okay, I'm sure that you'll get an improvement. You tested it with InnoDB, you had problems. I'm sure that you'll get an improvement if you put that or try that table using PBXT, because it's pushing out. What you should do with PBXT as far as the table definition is concerned is put the shorter fixed length columns in the front of the table. That's often actually the way people define tables. They put the blobs and the long varchars at the end of the table definition. That's often done just out of tradition, habit. That suits PBXT perfectly because it tries to fit as many fixed length columns into this fixed piece of data here as it can. And if you're only selecting the columns that are involved in this part of the record, then it doesn't need to load the extended data. It doesn't do that at all. So if you're not going to read the blob, which is in this part, definitely be in this part. It's not going to be affected by the data. You can do a table scan, even if you've got huge blobs in the table, without any problem at all. Yes, next question.
The data log is also sequentially written.
Yes, the data log is also sequentially written. So the question is?
How do you update it?
How do I update the data log if I'm just doing sequential writes? I never update the data log. I write a new record sequentially to the end, and then I delete. That's the new version of the row. And the old version of the row, as I explained with the sweeper, is then cleaned up in the background. And that's when it cleans up the old record, it leaves a hole in the data log. And that hole is cleaned up by the compactor thread. When there's sufficient garbage in the data log, then it's cleaned up by the compactor thread. Okay, that answers the question.